Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne. And how is everybody today? Justin is not even a disembodied brain today. He's sucked in a ReaperCon meeting. I think he's moved to a separate dimension. Everybody gets permission to get pizza? Ah, okay. I'm not going to get pizza, but I have like low-carb pizza crusts that I like and we have pesto. So really, I've got everything I need to make my own tasty pizza. It's Pizza Tuesday, apparently. Oh, Taco Tuesday, the official Taco Tuesday. So maybe we should look at... But I already made fish tacos last week, guys, and we didn't prep our fajita meat. So what am I going to do to make a taco? There we go. Yes, everybody can put off Taco Tuesday for a day. I think that's the answer. Morning. Failing on eyes again? Yeah. SoCal is blazing, is it? I don't know what it's supposed to be today. It looks nice out, but it's been cooler again, though. Let me see. What do we got? Yeah, it's only supposed to be 63 today. It's been nice. It's been a little windy in the evenings, though. I hate it because it just gets grit in my eyes. Good morning. Morning, everybody. All right, well, let's pop over to our vampire. Ta-da, the vampire. And of course, you all have been staring at her number, so you all know how to order her. She is a chibi. I think we're gonna do some red today. Ah, not what he means. Like actually on fire. Oh, I know, Kariniko. Yeah, when there's a fresh sushi counter, it's like, oh. Like, I have to not walk down the part of the street with the sushi restaurant on it, right on our block, because I will be so tempted all the time. John David, I take things literally all the time. I've done this since I was a small child, and I always got ridiculed for it, and I pretty much would just tell people to screw off. I'm going to take things the way I take them. Well, kind of, Cookie. This is Monique's armor scheme. It's always been, even before that movie. Or actually, was that movie back... When was that movie came out? I did see it, but I liked painting vampires in red before that because GW had always done it. And I liked the blood dragons, so I based it more on that. I didn't really base it on the movie. But I guess it is. I mean, it's very similar to the movie, although I don't think he's got the gold trim that I may be putting on it. Oh, I see. Probably don't go there, John David, because I have such a negative reaction to people making fun of me because I'm honest, straightforward, and that's the way I read things. So, it's cool that you were just, joking and you love it, but yeah, I have a very negative association from that because I have a very literal mind. So if you make a side joke that isn't one that I immediately get, then I'm just going to be like, eh. I see. Dogfather, thank you for the resub. Yeah, and I never smoked marijuana and never will, so that's why I don't get that joke. No biggie. You didn't know it was a trigger for me. And it's not a huge trigger, it's just one that, brings up unpleasant memories. Like all my school days. I can't say that really, but, Let's just say I'm much happier as an adult, and I would never, if I could turn time back and be young again, nope, I'm okay where I am, thank you. Yeah, too far off topic there. Rex, okay, so here's the deal, Rex. House paints are latex house paints, that they always call it a latex base, but in reality there is no actual latex. Just like in a vinyl house paint base, there is no actual vinyl. What those terms are used for, and this is true across all paints that have resins in them, which is pretty much everything except traditional artist tube paints that are still made with things like gum arabic. But any liquid paint is going to have a resin base to it. And those resins are based on plastics, traditional plastic products that we know and, have used for ages, like vinyl, latex, and acrylic. So the best paint for miniature painting has some of the more flexible resins in it, the vinyls and latexes. And then I also have the hardest resin in it, like acrylic. And acrylic is usually still acrylic, but vinyl and latex have been like, they're not vinyl and latex anymore. They're synthetic variations of those things that are like non-allergenic because of the allergy thing. So, like, they call it latex, and it's a version of that polymer, but it's not like latex, like gloves. Yeah. Yeah, American, you've got to step up and say, hey, dude, this makes me unhappy. Yeah. Yeah, so essentially what you'll see now in paints is you'll still see the branding be, latex house paint, quote unquote. But then if you look at the actual ingredients, it'll say synthetic, proprietary polymer on the side. And so what they're talking about is just a plastic polymer. And that's what makes house paint peelable, right? Is like that polymer. It's plastic, it's making it able to be peeled up in strips. So it's a plastic polymer essentially. So that is the dealio. They have all three, and there are also variations now that are kind of between those things. Like there's an acrylic latex blend, and there's a acrylic vinyl blend, and they always try to create these polymers that are midway between, because acrylic is really transparent, but it gives really good durability. And, and then the other ones are very weak with durability, but they want more coverage, so they use those. So it's this sliding scale of qualities that each resin produces. They're based on a high vinyl base. Whenever you see one of those goopy feeling, high coverage base coat paints, that's going to be at the vinylish end of the scale, which means it's very thick and the polymer's size is very large. And that means it makes it easier for it to glob together, which is why paints with that quality tend to they have more of that tendency to kind of settle into a plug and just go bad. Because of the heaviness and largeness of the polymer particles, they actually do sink and settle out of solution and glom onto each other easier, which means they're more likely to produce clogs. It's chemistry. It's like common sensistry, really. Common sensistry. That's my new word for you guys should be able to think about this because it's not really heavy chemistry. All right, have fun. Polymer. It is a fun word. It's like polymorph. Yeah, clogs. I got it. But yeah, so, I mean, but the same thing that makes that paint more likely to produce a clog or to settle in its bottle is the thing that gives you the coverage. So it's that's why paint companies and surface companies are always trying to produce the next new thing that can give you the advantages without the disadvantages. But because it's on a microparticulate level, I'm I don't know that they're going to be able to do that really easily. They've made, the high density pigments we use are kind of a good example. It improves on the coverage, but it still doesn't give you the perfect coverage. So chemical companies are going to keep trying to do it. Hey, Norscan, how's it going? That's because we use a hybrid base for a lot of our paint, John David, and some of them are even very high acrylic. So that's why you get more transparency, but you get... Well, it's more transparent, right? So you have to put on maybe 2 layers. Although I find out of an airbrush, our paint covers pretty well. But yeah, it's more durable, and it tends not to clog because at a base level, literally base level, it's a finer consistency. So, that's... And so you'll see, actually, you'll see a big difference. This is why some paints have airbrush lines, like Vallejo does. Because the Vallejo base paint is not as good for airbrushing because it does have that heavier body. But then when they switch their airbrush line, that's a very different base. Very, very different base. So then that they've essentially formulated to be not only a thinner paint, because of course airbrush paints are usually a little bit pre-thin, but a very much more liquid base in general. So, cool. Excellent. Since I can't say your name, STP, you're going to be STP. There are rules. I could call you Pants. I guess that works. It's British, right? But, all right, so let's get our red going on. I changed things up this morning. Usually I do Monique in a yellow red. I highlighted up through yellow, but I decided to change that because I'm going to use that on my orc. And so we're going to go colder with Monique and go up with white. That way you guys get to see both. And I forgot to dig out my pure white again. One of these days I'm going to run out and then I'm going to steal David's. Turnabout his fair play, boyfriend. SP is fine. All right, you got it. Well, pure white is the best paint on the planet. That's just the way it is. I will claim that. Like, until somebody dethrones me, I'm going to claim that I've created the best white paint on the planet. Hands down. Pure white is great because it's very, very thinnable and still stays in solution, Satan. So you used your word, SP. SP. I have to call it SP. I'm so used to just referring to people by their handles, but I just can't do it on your name. Rules and regs. I'm sure you get that a lot, and it tickles you a lot, but sadly I can get in trouble for it, so. And I don't want to be in trouble. Kind of sucks. All right, so we're going to use Fire Red, which is a colder bright red. For those who didn't know that Fire Red was a colder bright red, it actually does have a touch of violet in it. That leaves it cooler. It's kind of my answer for Carmine, which I used to really like Valeo's version of. Although that's even pinker. Yeah, thanks, SP. Hey, no problem, Inara. Super. All right, so I've got several cool reds here. Cool reds. We're going to work with cool reds today, and then I've got white. So my transition here, that's my dark, and I'm going to take it all the way up to pure white because I want the armor to be slightly shiny. So, I mean, we don't have the room to do, like, real NMM on this figure. We can do kind of pseudo NMM. Yeah, pure white. Well, pure white is our most heavily pigmented white in our scan, so there are times when I will reach for, say, a bleached linen instead, if I want to slide the color lighter, but I don't want a huge hit of white, which does happen. Sometimes you want a little bit of a gentler transition, so you can reach for an off-white instead. But if I want real punch and coverage, and I want to be able to thin my highlights down really fine, like with skin tones, I always go for pure white. I don't even use a lot of the highlight skin tone tried colors anymore. I will just use the mid-tone and add pure white to it. Because I like the way that it layers up just a little bit better. Alrighty, so we're going to do mixes of these, obviously, because I need a pink transition. I need at least one pink transition. When you're doing red and you want it to stay red, you have to keep the majority of every single plate red. Like, the kind of red you want it to look. So when you're working with a model as tiny, with as tiny a body as this, which is most 28 millimeters, let's face it, you have to keep a lot of red on the plates, which means your highlights and your shadows are going to be tiny. I mentioned before that I was mostly using the lining for my shadow, and this is true. Although I may come and I wanted a cold dark, which is at this point deep red, 9002, which is my favorite cold dark red. Like, this is my buddy, like Asmodeus is my buddy. Pathfinder. So, Urgathoa. Urgathoa keeps wanting to jump into my arms, and I really don't want it there. All right, so these two. You can see on camera that they're very similar, but you can see the more purple tone to this one, right? And the more yellow tone to this one. So these are partners. Like, one of them is for warm reds, and one of them is for cold reds. So if you want to go more cold and highlight with white on your armor, and for vampires, that's certainly suitable because they are definitely like a colder Of all of the undead, they are the warmest, and so you can go up to yellow on them if you want. You can use warmer tones on them, but if you're looking for that, like, to emphasize the coldness and undeadness of a vampire, I would say if you're going with red, go with cold reds. But yeah, and then Asmodeus is the warm red. Great, Kariniko. That's fantastic. And they're both useful, and they're just different. And then fire, like I said, has a tiny bit of violet in it, and it's a little bit of white as well. It is meant to simulate a carmine red. So I'm going to pop just a little bit of water in each of these just to keep them good. When you're mixing, and I probably could have actually done this on a wet palette today, but I decided I wanted to do well anyway, so we'll see. But when you are, like, grabbing your colors and kind of building, like, a set of colors that you intend to mix all your highlights and shadows from, it does help to drop, like, 1 drop of water into them to keep them wet on your palette, and then transfer a bunch over to side wells in order to build your colors that you need. We need so little paint for her because everything is so tiny. And I may not actually need any transition going up to this fire red. We're going to try to use it just straight up. Of all the undead, they are the warmest. They're the cuddliest, the sparkliest. I went there. I mean, I guess there are some liches out there who would be like, hey, I serve people tea every time they come into my lair. I am far warmer than vampires. And cozy. But I'm just going to disbelieve those liches, really. But yeah, I mean, if you you laugh, right? But Bug Lips, but it is a thing, right? If you've ever studied Hollywood movie making and color, if you ever take, like, Justin McCoy's color and light class, or talk to people like oh man, there are a couple painters who are really one into it, and one of it, Steve Garcia. Steven Garcia actually works in that industry, and if you look at his Crystal Brush winning work, you see that he does. Because in the movies, colors, backgrounds, and scene colors are chosen to echo the character and mood of the scene, right? So the type of lighting and the color of lighting that they'll use, the color of the character's clothes, you know, like, it'll all shift based on who's the central character and what's the emotion content of the scene. So when I say that vampires, although they're the warmest of the undead, they're still undead, I'm serious about this. Like, you can choose to go either way. If you go colder, it tends to be less welcoming, and visually it tends to imply a character that's more evil. If you go warmer, then it adds a bit more liveliness to a character, more energy, right? So that's it's really a thing. And you can ignore it in your painting, or you can study it, get fascinated by it, and try to start working it in. It's just an extra dimension that you can use to help think about your colors. Yeah, I think I am going to shade a little bit with my deep red. We're using the Da Vinci again today. I'm back to my Series 10 size 1. Sorry, Raphael, the honeymoon's over. It sounds like I've been cheating on my Da Vinci with my other Italian lover, the Raphael, when I say that. It's funny. But yeah, so just, and when things are this small, guys, the nice thing about tiny surfaces is you don't even really blend. Like, I thinned my red down a little bit, and so it's a little bit blendable, but it's, a splat. But it's not like, you don't have to have a perfect blend on this. Because these plates are so little. And this is true of 28mm faces. A lot of the time people think you need to have your blending more perfect than you do. You get the underside of the breastplate. Just going to add some shading where shading is due. I think a lot of the thing that drives me away from painting chibis a lot, because I like the faces. Everybody likes the faces, right? But I don't like how the rest of everything is so compacted and harder to paint. So I think that's why I'm not huge into chibis, even though they're cute, and I'm huge into cute. Nonetheless, I find some of their stuff more difficult to paint. So it's like, kind of like, but it's so cute. And then it's like, but it's so difficult. However, some people absolutely adore them. So I thought I would paint one. I guess it's no worse than painting like a halfling, you know, a really small 28. It's just comically truncated. I do have some chibis that I bought on my own, the Egyptian ones. I forget which company they're from. Chibi Amy would know. Chibi, are you out there? Yeah. Who does those Egyptian ones? I've got a Bast and a Set and Anubis chibi. Maybe there are a couple companies that do them, but these have been out for several years. Yeah, the Mouselings are similar to chibi. That's for sure. They feel like chibi in many ways, although I find that their body proportions and head proportions are a little bit more balanced, but because chibi's definitely a style, right? It's an over-exaggerated style. Mouselings are a little bit like that. I just like painting big stuff now, so it's like I tend to get a little bit... I get frustrated. Not frustrated, but it's just like I feel like I can't do much on a very tiny surface, right? Like I can't do nearly as much as I can do on a big surface. So I get more excited about painting big things because I feel like I've got more options. But we'll just block in some shadows here. Technically, there's a big shadow back on here. Her head is so big that it makes her shoulder pads, which would normally be, you know, in the light. Yeah, it's probably Impact. I got him at Adepticon. I love Egyptian stuff, so it was easy sell for me. And the Anubis and Bast are adorable. Like, I really like them. One of these days I'll paint them. I found them the other day. They popped up in one of my bags of stuff. I was trying to sort my stuff a little bit, because, you know, it helps. I'm going to make a dark red shadow all under her hair. We're just going to shade the entire back of this model. You don't really have to do anything more than that, unless you find that you can see a little bit of the back plate. Like, I can see a little bit of the black back plate right here when I turn her, so I'll probably highlight here. But if it's covered in something, just don't even. Just base coat it, shade it, done. Yeah. Yeah, Impact has some of their stuff is like, and some of their stuff is like really cool, and I really liked the Egyptian stuff. There were a couple others that tempted me, but I so seldom am driven to paint chibis that I was just like, I'm not going to buy any more until I have painted the chibis I have. Maybe there'll be a competition coming up once we get back to cons again that has a chibi category, and that'll motivate me to paint a chibi. Sometimes it takes that sort of motivation for me. I use competitions to motivate myself to paint a lot. So I haven't been painting a lot of my own stuff in the time since we kind of went no competition. I need a line behind that strap. I'm noticing areas where I needed to line and I didn't, so I'm going to grab some color. I don't like Superhero that much, Rex. Thanks for the heads up, though. I bet other people in chat do. Yeah, it really depends, John David, if there's deals or not. Some shows will run specific deals on a specific model or promotion. More often at shows, it's less likely that you save money, but it's more likely that they'll put out a new release early at a show, just a little bit early, or it'll be the first place to get it, and it'll release immediately thereafter. All right. Yeah, it figures that miniatures... that if a big franchise like Marvel's gonna do miniatures, it's gonna be attached to a board game, because board games sell very well in general. Board games have better sales than miniatures alone. That's why you see so many miniatures board games now. This is a way to, a lot of these companies have kickstarted the product too, so it's like they get their upfront costs covered. But if they didn't, then it's more likely to sell as a board game than it is just a miniatures Kickstarter. They usually go much higher. Yes, Shadow Raven makes a good point. On the last day of shows, you can get some good deals because they don't want to take it home. They don't want to ship it. They don't want to have to pack it up. So you can get some really good deals. Nomad Zeke, I think some are trying to do that. I noticed, I forget which one, but there was one recently that I noticed did do a miniatures only level, but it just wasn't selling nearly as well as their regular level. So most of us are safe probably. All right, let's take this fire red and see. I need to line that strap real quick. Yeah, exactly. You got to keep an eye on it, right? Because a lot of stuff sells out in the first day or second day if it's really popular, and then waiting really screws you. You have to judge it carefully. I gambled a bit when Hangar 18 had their going out of, retiring sale last year, or the year before at ReaperCon, the last ReaperCon we had. I was like, I bought the things that I really wanted up front, but then I was kind of lurking and staring at some of the remaining pieces and took my chances that they would still be there on like Saturday. It's because I had to assess my finances before blowing even more money at Tori's booth. Somebody better step up and make a new like ReaperCon booth that carries the same kind of stuff. Because Tori was the only one who used to carry, he would always bring the brushes, the Da Vinci brushes and Raphael brushes. He also would always bring a whole bunch of like European resin, like really high quality stuff from Europe. Well, all the stuff is like available online from other companies, Rex. It's just that it was nice to have it in person. And be able to just shop, because we all love that visceral shopping in person experience, right? So now I've just gone to kind of like lurking around on the interwebs and, getting on people's mailing lists so that when, Ignis Art does a new model, I get a heads up, or when some of these other companies do a new Kickstarter, I get a heads up. But it was really nice to be able to like access some of that stuff just in person. And some of it we can. I think there's also another booth that was repping FER, which is another high quality European bust kind of company. And of course, Scale 75 and Andrea are both at the show. So there are definitely opportunities to like get some really nice models. I just liked that Hangar 18 carried a whole variety of them. Yeah, Krios. Yeah, I still have stuff that I bought that I haven't started, but I bought it because I hadn't seen it in person before. It was a good opportunity to get it, especially when he put it all on sale. Yeah, I've seen Michigan Toy Soldier. They have a booth at Chicago, MMSI Chicago, don't they? Or was that Red Lancers? I don't remember who was there, but the problem we have now, Dogfather, is that we actually don't need more vendors. We're filling up the space we've got. Like, we had more applications than we had room last ReaperCon, if I remember correctly. Because ReaperCon is getting on people's radar now. And so like, there's no advantage to us in reaching out to more people because we're just like, we don't have room for the people we've got. Yes, there are vendors at ReaperCon besides Reaper, correct. I have no idea. 9 cents. Since I bought my or got my hotel room, I stopped looking. I guess I should, although if I'm teaching, I think they make an exception. If there's like 1,000 people, they'll let me be 1,001, but technically I'm still a Reaper employee, so I'm all right, so I'm going to start doing a little red highlights. You can see those little bright red highlights that I just put on there, and you can see how this plate has come out a bit. So the fire red is close enough to my starting dark red, and it's close enough to a true red that I don't mind covering up a lot of the plate with it. it's going to bring up the vibrancy of the red a bit more from this dark red. So I'm going to leave my darks in the shadows, but I am going to start bringing it all up toward the fire red. And if I, yeah, I would be surprised if they sold out, because I don't think, because things are still like a little wibbly wobbly, I think some people are going to take a while to get back to being comfortable with travel, right? Like, I'm kind of gambling that I'll be comfortable with travel by the time ReaperCon comes around. Now, if you find that you've got a very small area and you're having trouble making this red pop out, the thing to do, this is why we mixed up our pure white, is to underpaint it. So what we can do is take our thinned white and get just a little bit of it. We don't really want it to even like have heavy coverage. We just want it to go make a little bit to define these areas that are so small. And this is a trick I use for all fine details. So see how I've painted the red, essentially painted the red where I want these other red highlights, right? So let's do another one right here. And then, let's see, there's another piece right here. Just gonna put a little dab on there. So I've brought out some small details here. Now when I go to paint my fire red over that, the fire red is gonna show up a lot better over that white. It's just like we always say, like, white primer will give you brighter colors. This is what you're doing. You're painting white paint down, and then you're putting the red, which is slightly thinned, over the top of it. And it makes the details, see how sharp that is now? Now you can see all those little foot plates. Whereas before, I would have had to really fight for that. You can kind of see how muddy it goes on the other side. So that's what I do for, like, if I'm trying to layer up a transparent color, and I feel like I need more delineation, more sharpness, that I'm not, because the color is transparent, it's hard to get a hard, sharp highlight. So you use the white. Good deal, 9 cents. We're excited to have you at your first ReaperCon. It's always nice to meet new friends. New online friends who we already know, but don't really know. There's some little details on these. These hip plates of armor are kind of batwing shaped on the original figure, and they're kind of really foreshortened here, but I'm able to get a little bit of detail. And there's just some stuff back here that I can't see really well. It shouldn't look pink yet. Like, Carmine is still a really bright red, although it has a little white and violet in it. It's not. And when you put down the white, you're just giving, it's like putting bright colors over on white paper. It makes all the colors brighter to have that white background. If you try to put the same colors over black primer or black paper, it dulls them slightly. You don't want dull because you're doing such fine details. So you got to put that white down. But that doesn't mean I'm letting any of the white show through. Just because my red is a little bit transparent, it's just going to act better over the white. Like, it's only going to be pink when I start adding pink. And even then, like, the highlights are going to be tiny touches of pink. The key here, as always, is surface control. I talk about this a lot on things like red. If you don't want your red to turn pink, then keep your highlights really small. You can highlight with pink all day long and the red will never look pink as long as you keep your highlights small. And really, on something like this, you want your highlights to be tiny because you've got all these little plates that overlap. So you only need a tiny highlight to bring out each of those. So we'll go up even further into the pink. We'll go up to strawberry pink and beyond. But it won't make the model look pink. And if it does at any point, that's when you do a mixture of these two, build a glaze, and put it over the top. Knock the highlights down just a tiny bit, and you get back into the red territory. It's not as hard as you think. But, I mean, when people shade white and it looks gray, or people highlight black and it looks gray, that's because they're not using surface control. Their highlights are too big or their shadows are too big. Each little surface has to be mostly the color you want it to look. In fact, I'm probably going to underpaint the rest of this armor because it's just much faster than trying to build up a couple of layers. So I'm going to use my white to outline these plates. at the edges where it's going to flare out and catch the light. Yes, always enter the painting competition because it makes me proud. Because I remember when that painting competition barely could break 50 entries. And we worked very hard on it over the years. Me and Ed and Michael Proctor and Rhonda in turn. And now it you know, busts hundreds of entries, and we beat 1,000 the last ReaperCon, which was crazy talk. But I mean, that said, do some, you know, do try, because the great thing about like ReaperCon is that you can get feedback afterwards. So don't enter just to enter. Do like try to do some of your best work and enter that. That said, so many people like are annoyed because they put in 2 models. One of them that they kind of just did, and one of them that they worked really hard on. And inevitably, the model that they just did, you know, gets placed higher. So there is such a thing as overworking. But yeah. Yeah, the Ed skeletons were fun. Anything that makes Ron turn red around the collar just, you know, makes my day. So keep at it. Keep at it with the Ed skeletons. So, okay, so we've got our white down right here. So that's where I want my highlights. I'm just going to paint this fire red right over the top. It's only thinned about 4 to 1, so it's not thinned that much. But reds tend to be a little bit more translucent anyway, so it works. And that essentially allows me to build up a brighter highlight faster with more contrast than if I was trying to build up this fire red by itself, which might take 3 coats. So that's the trick, people. That's the way you do it. And if I find that it's still looking a little light, I'm going to just bring in another layer of this kind of translucent red, and it's still good. Like I can still see all the little plates very nicely, in fact. Much nicer than I could before. So now our challenge is to like bring up some of this stuff. Most of the breastplate is in shadow. Most of the top of it is this gold, but I want to bring up a couple of little touches. Just a little bit. Even if it's not quite proper, when you have something that's like over exaggerated at this scale, sometimes you need to go outside of where realism goes in order to pick out details. So I'm going to pick out some detail down there and here and make that a brighter red. And part of the reason I want to highlight here also is to bring out this wing shape. Because if I have that lining there, putting a highlight right under it is one way to pick out these details. So going away from realism now, though I'll still keep my dark red on the very underside, but trying to bring out some brighter color here and keep the contrast with my lining. It's not so much unrealistic over here on this one area because that actually does go up quite near to the top. But the other areas I'm pushing it, but I want that red. I want just a little bit of red there to really show up. And you notice I'm using very tiny touches of paint. This brush is very good for this. It's a nice size for this. My triple aught Da Vinci would work as well. You can even do some wet blending with some pinks if you want to. And it'll still work. Works a little better the more light you go. And if on these highlights you wipe out some of your lining, I would have my lining already mixed up so I can go back in with it. Everybody's like quiet, so everybody must be on conference calls or like concentrating very hard. Yeah, see I wiped out a little bit of the lining there, got a little bit of sloppy, that's okay. I'm gonna come back in and touch it up. Doing this little stuff is good practice for your brush control. Oh, pineapple upside down cake day. I love pineapple upside down cake. That's an excuse to buy a pineapple. I totally should have thought about doing that. I could make a low-carb one. I bet that would be super tasty. I could use my recipe for my low-carb strawberry shortcake cakes. It's probably very similar. I have a cantaloupe, and I'm super excited about that. Like, my new diet lets me have fruit, which, you know, for years on low-carb, I had only been permitted to have, like, strawberries and raspberries, and I missed my cantaloupe so much, and grapes. So I'm super happy to be able to have fruit again. Though I do have to watch it, I am noticing. Can't go too sweet and sugary with my diet. There we go. Had to clean up that breastplate area there. You've been working on them for a bit, haven't you, Lord? Yeah, cantaloupe and prosciutto rocks, and I'm with you. Although I've held off buying prosciutto. Although now that I have a whole cantaloupe, I probably should ask David to pick up a package of it when he goes to the store on Friday, because I forgot to get it on Monday. Yeah, it makes sense that Morta would be identical color scheme. I mean, this is a traditional GW vampire color scheme. It's their old Blood Dragons chapter, whatever they call that now. They may have switched all their vampires to it. But, you know, it's a very traditional red armor with gold trim and black cloth, or, you know, black accents here and there. So when I try to just put the bright red, the fire red, over the surface, notice how much duller it is than when I undercoat it with white. Like, it's very, very... You have to build it up a lot more. Now, you can get some cool effects by building it up more and not going with the white underpaint. But if you are looking for more speed, then underpaint. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the old Catholic ladies, hey, I'm an ex-Catholic lady, and they do know how to swear. That's really funny. So, all right. So another way to use your white for micro highlights is like on tiny plates like this, where the side plate, where you want a highlight right at the top, and you don't really need a highlight on the rest of it. You can use that white to make that little tiny hairline highlight, and then you can pop some red over the top of it. But the white is, because you can thin it down so much, this is where pure white really shines, is you can thin it down so much, make such a fine line with it, and then, you know, use that to bring out fine details like that. I'm going to do this plate here too. Hey, Spacefly. Good evening. Good morning for me. I'm very far away from you. But yeah, so I used my white, my tiny little thin down white to make that little highlight on top of that plate, and now I can paint my red over it. And I don't have to worry about making a transparent color function that way. It'll work just fine. And then if I want to, I can come back and highlight that with more red or more white or a lighter color. All right, so she's coming along. We're getting her armor. Nice. Yeah. Now you crave cantaloupe? Yeah, I do love cantaloupe. And it's remarkably, like, low carb. Like, you can eat a lot of it without there's not as much sugar in it as I expected for its per volume. So you could actually eat quite a bit. And it's nice, and it has a lot of water in it, so it helps fill you up. It's pleasantly surprised. So cantaloupe is back on the menu. I'm just debating. I need to clear up some space, and our refrigerator is so crammed full of food right now. I have to cook everything. Like David's bachelor fridge has been dead for a year. When I moved in, David's fridge got real stuff, like more than just condiments and beer. He was very proud of his bachelor fridge for a very long time, though. It was a serious bachelor fridge. He did not cook because his work had a cafeteria, so he didn't really need to like prep breakfast or lunch, and he would just usually get takeout for dinner. So now it's funny, there's just so much stuff in the fridge, always full. I probably need to pare back on that a little bit, but I like to cook. That's funny. Yeah, mine is on the counter still because it wasn't quite there. Like, I think it's probably ripe today. And now I want to cut it up and put it in bowls, portions, because it'll keep for a few days in the fridge once it's cut up. And I didn't have room so much to put the entire round thing in there because I've got so much other stuff in there. Yeah, they do, Inara. Like, fruit and veggies take up probably at least half the space in our refrigerator. Because I believe in a pretty veggie-heavy diet these days. Alright, so I'm going to put a stronger white highlight down the top of the foot there, and then I've got slighter. This is why I like to thin the white, because if you put one layer down, it's like just kind of a faded white, but if you put an additional highlight, then you get like a brighter highlight, and then you put red over the whole thing, and you'll still see those transitions. Trying to get where I am here. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes chibis, it's kind of hard to see what you're working on. Just do your best. But yeah, so if you want a little bit of a highlight on the inside of a place, then you can put just a little bit of that white down. Yeah, if I did all meat and burgers, I'd never lose weight. Like, I had to switch my diet up if I wanted to lose the last bit of weight. I am at peace with it. I like my new diet, actually. It's very close to my old low-carb diet. It's just a little bit more mindful on portions. Alrighty, so there's my underpainting, and that brings out my details pretty well, but now it's time for some real highlighting. Hey, morning, love. How's it going? I haven't seen you for a bit. Doing a little bit of red armor here today. It's super fast. Like, the underpainting tricks in is super fast. And the key, like, here with angular armor like this is why I said we wouldn't be able to, like, do real NMM on it, but we can kind of do cheese NMM. But the trick then is to just leave your center of your plate, the red you've got it, and all your remaining highlights go to the edges. That way you always get to see the details. I feel you. I've been having a lot of stress land on me from one of my other commitments. I'm doing okay. I'm wrestling with it. It's like, I just have like too much on my plate, and then for a while I was getting really successful at getting some stuff off my plate, but then this week has just been, last week and this week have just been high pressure, and so I'm trying to work with stuff to just get some things cleared out. Every once in a while, all the stuff you got builds up on you and goes all over you. when we try to do too much, right? Hey, Coobs, thanks for the resub. Long time no see for you too. Oh, yeah, that's a huge transition, right? With the kids, my brothers went through that this year when Wisconsin started to kind of have kids back, but just part time, right? So, and he and his wife both work, and he commutes like over an hour daily, so like trying to wrestle with the how are we working from home, are we not working from home. He was able to do a lot of his work from home, which was a good adjustment, but his wife's a chiropractor, so she has to be there in the office. You can't really chiropract long distance. So but yeah, their kids are a little older, which made it a lot easier, I bet, than you've got. Yeah. Like, how are you gonna? You had to revamp your life once, and just when we're getting used to it, now you have to revamp your life again. And you get through it, but it's just so overwhelming sometimes when you've got so much else to worry about. Because the rest of your life is getting going and changing also. So I totally feel you. Oh, yeah. Parking downtown is terrible. Oh. Like, when I first moved here, love, it was funny because I have a big Honda Element, and David's like, I can tell that you haven't lived in San Francisco. Your car is twice the size it needs to be. Apparently, the tactic is to have a tiny car so that you can actually fit into spaces that look like they're not spaces. Oh, yeah, it's stretch time. Yeah, Shadow Raven. Yep. All right, so anyway, we're working on the side here. So let us just put our little Monique down. As you can see, I've started lightening up some of the edges here on this front plate. I'll probably have to bring my red in again. Whenever you feel like you've gone way too pink, grab some of your deep red and a little bit of your fire red and glaze it over that area to get your depth back. This is also a place where you may whip out the clear red, because clear red has it's so bright. It's got a ton of red depth, so it'll take down any pinkness pretty darn fast. Oh, 8 14-hour days. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I hope you find a way, love. That's just so stressful. Sending much de-stress love to you. Everybody send love vibes to Love and Music for having to figure this out with her kids, because that's so hard. Cozy coop. Yes. Oh, 500k points. Nice, Dapadware. Yeah, super love, because stress just kills you. And that's just when you have stress about your kids and your job and your everything, that's just bad. I don't wish that on anybody. Yeah, San Francisco has its moments. I mean, Chicago was just as bad for parking when my family, my great aunt lived there. Are you going to stay in California and move out, out away from the city, love? Or are you going to go and leave California entirely? Because I can say Texas is, cheap. I just moved away from there. But then I have the advantage of a well-off boyfriend to help me. And the South Bay is a different vibe. It's a vampire. It is, hold on, space. Small Worlds, because it's chibi. Reaper does a Small World line for their little chibi characters. 77716, Monique de Noir. If you look up Monique de Noir on Reaper's webpage, you will see all sorts of iterations. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, There are lots of options. Hopefully you find a good solution. But yeah, I moved away from Texas just, well, let's face it, for the boyfriend. So I've lived in Texas for 17 years. But I had I had a job with Reaper when I moved down there, and I stayed for the whole time, so. But I hope you find a good solution. When I was originally thinking about living here, and I was like, I can't afford the Bay Area, I was looking at Sacramento, and it looked a little bit better. For rent and everything. And if David hadn't invited me to live with him, that's probably how I would have gone. Though I'm sure it's all expensive. Plus, right now it's so crazy to be looking at houses anyway, right? Because it's so inflated. Thank you for the link there, Quindy. Quindy just linked the Small World Chibis. Making me move? I did mention I was born in this town, right? And I wanted to come back. I mean, just the fact that David moved here right before I moved, was just kind of creepy, actually. Because I'm like, you moved to where? Oh, yeah. Allergies, yep. Well, then I can promote, when I moved out to Baltimore, I was living north of Baltimore, East Coast. My allergies actually went away. Like, I've had allergies since I was 10, love, and they went away for 9 months. Like, the year I lived there, I had a little bit of allergies at the beginning, and then just died. Like, it was the first time in my life I didn't have to take an allergy pill every single day. So you could look East Coast. You could look East Coast. The rents are, yeah, but not as ridiculous as here, I bet, Jelly. Because, I was looking, and I could have maybe afforded the rent in Sacramento. And I looked at here, and it was like 3 times as much. Sacramento is lovely. Like, I think Sacramento is one of the prettier cities I've seen. Like, with the river and everything. Ah, yeah. Oh, you're near Baltimore? AQ, yeah, I used to live up in White Marsh when I lived out on the East Coast. I really love the fall where you guys are. Like, oh my gosh. You guys get the most beautiful fall weather, and it lasts forever. Like, you have a real fall. Like, 3 months of it. I'd never experienced... I'm from Wisconsin. We get 2 weeks, tops. Maybe Oregon? Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool, AQ. Yeah, I used to run a paint club out there, 20 years ago. Out in, we actually would do it, we ended up doing it just over into Virginia. Just over the border, just because there was a game store there that was big enough for it. Yeah, well, I like hot, because Texas, right, Jelly? So, I don't know, I had a very positive experience, just general, very positive view of Sacramento when I went through there, and I have a friend who lives there. It just seemed like a really nice city, and like I said, it was definitely more affordable than the Bay Area. Still expensive, but guys, when I left Denton was getting bloody expensive. Texas, so I guess in Texas is really where you are. All right, so we've got some. You can see our nice little areas here. Oh no. I don't remember the exact store, AQ. It was we used to drive down through DC, and then it was like another half an hour. I forget. This was 20 years ago, and I haven't been back, so I've totally forgotten. Best burrito place, huh? Ah, so when we go into the city, we should investigate. Yeah, I got lucky too. I have an excellent man who has an excellent job who can, allow us to live here. Like, I see why my parents left, and they left back in the 70s. So, they decided it was too expensive to live out here even then. So that's why I grew up in Wisconsin. So when you get down to highlighting this stuff, you've got to be really, 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 really small. So I just wanted to bring that up a little bit more. And I'm probably going to do a fair bit of going back and forth on highlight and then, you know, knock it down a little bit, highlight, knock it down a little bit. We'll see. I'm going to mix up a pink now and we're going to use it. Although actually I should finish this. I should finish the arm up here, so I'll do that. And the inside cuff on the hair. Need to bring that up as well. Don't want to forget the arms. Need to get all the red done at once. And I need a little bit of a highlight on the shoulder pad. So again, just popping in a little bit of white. Yeah. Yeah, I used to drive about an hour and a half to Paint Club. This is like a recurring theme, like wherever you find the game store that has the room to host Paint Club is where you drive to. I mean, I used to, in Wisconsin, I drove down into Illinois because I had a friend, Sue Wachowski, owned a game store. And we would do it there, so that was like over an hour drive, especially when I went into Chicago to pick up Jennifer and take her down there too. So it was like an hour and a half to get to Paint Club, and then an hour and a half back. But I was devoted, so I did it anyway. El Farolito, I'll have to remember that. Alrighty. Getting just some little white bits onto this armor so I can do the highlights. You tried a Bob Ross tutorial? That's awesome. Did you have fun, love? Because it always looks like those would be so much fun. Yeah, you're lucky, Nomad. Put it up on, you should put up a picture on the Discord. Yeah, totally. Put it up in Off Topic. Show us what you did. Okay, cool. Because that does sound like kind of fun. Just kind of detox and paint some Zen canvas with Bob Ross. That does sound really fun. And he moves so fast. You've got to move fast with it. It makes you not quite overthink it as much, I think. Wish my art classes would have done that. That would be a fun art class. I bet I could put together such a fun painting class these days. All the things my instructors never did that I thought they should have. Oh, I forgot to hydrate. Water. If you didn't have a hydration moment when you did your stretch, like me, drink. Oh, did you? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, John. Yesterday overwhelmed me completely. It was a bad, bad day. So I did not get to my Discord. ReaperCon planning was probably insane last month. Like it becomes insane instantly. But yeah, I'll hit it, John, after my I'll put a to-do note. To-do note, Discord, John. Email is better because I check my email every day, John. Without probably usually a couple times a day. So, but that's cool. I'll get to the Discord. Alrighty. Got our red that's going on. Gonna do a little bit of a plate here. Alright. Just gonna get a couple little highlights back here on these little arm plates. So that I can bring those up a little bit. Bring out those little details. Just a little tiny bit. I'm not like going for serious big highlights here. Just enough to bring out the details, really. Relaxing, huh? Awesome. That's fantastic. Like, art needs to be relaxing. Yeah, Mighty Lancer. I think that there were some people looking around here to restart the club they used to have here in Mountain View, but the game store here closed down during the COVID. So now Dave and I will have to drive wherever people decide to restart it. Because I like having Paint Club every once in a while. But yeah, our local game castle closed down, so probably because the rent was too much to last during the pandemic. There we go. Now I've got my arm, got my highlights on there, got my highlights all up there, up there, up there. I need a little bit on this shoulder pad, I think. I would need more capital than I have for that, and I'd have to sink my entire life savings into it, and right now, that's not happening, Nomad. I am so cautious with money. When you become a starving artist, when you become a freelancer, you're like very, very, very cautious, I think, if you're gonna make it work. Very, very tight on my budget. Yeah. It was... Well, and I've thought about... Actually, if I opened any store, I don't think it would be a game store. I think it would be an art supply store. I miss the old art supply stores. Like Dick Blick. And just... That used to be, it seems like there were, like, small local art stores that were decent. And now it's become so expensive. And everybody does it online. But I would kind of like to do an art store and, do art lessons and stuff like that. People still like local stores, but they also like to buy online a lot. And it's this like dueling thing. It's like you have to, in order to make an in-person store work, you need to add value. It seems like. All right. So I went and lined those shoulder pads, got some stuff. Yeah, that's a problem too, right, Nomad Zeke? Art coffee bookstore. That would be really awesome, Jelly. There was one of those back in Madison. Actually, it was attached to a bed and breakfast. It was Canterbury. And they had a coffee shop in the front and a children's bookstore in the back. And then Pegasus Games temporarily, at one point, bought out the children's bookstore and turned it into a game store. So then you had a coffee shop in front, game store in back, with books in the middle. It was actually pretty cool. Yeah, I feel that, like, if you're going to do an art store now, an in-person art store, you've got to target a market and you've got to bring value. Like, you have to also teach classes. You have to, promote local artists. So you're going to need a decent footprint, and that's expensive. So I don't know how you'd make it work these days. But I think I would be more interested if I was going to open a retail business or try to do something like that. I think an art store that had lessons. Like, I saw a format like that working in Dallas before I left. Like, there was a place that did art supplies, but it largely did like classes, and it would do like kids parties and art parties essentially. And it was working. Like, it was doing okay. So I think you've got to like do that kind of thing. Yeah, that's too bad, Cornico. Yeah, it seems like a regular thing, right? They get bought out. And can you blame the people? Like, the people who started the art store probably had a pretty hard fight to, like, make ends meet and weren't doing amazingly. So when they get the buyout offer, they're like, crap, I could retire, or I could move to wherever I want, or move back with my family, or, and so they take the opportunity, but it means the little store goes away. Nice, Nomad. Where are you, Mighty Lancer? I didn't see where you are. Like, when you mentioned that you're going to be doing a paint night and stuff. Oh, you probably have oh yeah, UK. We would have to come over and like for a vacation. David makes it to Ireland for work every once in a while, but that's about as close as they get. Although I did tell him next time, once things open up again, if his company sends him again, we need to make a vacation of it. So I haven't been back over to Ireland or the UK for a long time. Field trip to the UK, yes. That would probably sell, Bug Lips. I think that's a great title. So we're going to take some of our fire red, toss some white into it, mix kind of a strawberry-ish pink. Because everything is so small on this model, we need to make it a fair bit lighter than, like if we were trying to do this on, say, the 54mm Monique, we would actually need to make it less of a transition because we need to worry more about smooth layering if that's what we were going for. But here, we're looking for edge highlighting. So we actually want a fair amount of pop. Yeah, you have to be, I think you have to like really work it to make your small store a success. Shadow Raven, and some of the like art supplies definitely don't have like a big margin on them. So that's why I say the classes are where you gotta go if you're doing that, because the classes like don't have overhead except for the supplies that you provide to the students, and you can, use those, reuse those. So all right, so doing a little bit of edge highlighting here, trying to make these lines really fine because I don't want to go pink. So we're gonna just put a little bit on, and I'm gonna step back and see what I feel like about it. And I'm gonna keep them either edge or small or both. So like here on the foot, I might only do the top, the tippy top little bit of each of these little plates. Right on the center. I got my first vaccine on Sunday, and now my arm has finally stopped hurting for the most part. So we'll see. We'll see how this highlight goes, guys. Once again, if I get a little pink, I'm not going to mind it. I'm just going to use a glaze to knock it a little bit down. And the key here is to make your highlights very small. But since we underpainted a bit, we could go pink really easily, so we need to watch it. Again, this is a technique that does actually work a little bit better on a bigger model, just because you can make your highlights much smaller. When the plates of this armor are bigger, it's easier to make a small highlight and leave a lot of the surface, the red that you want it. But the human eye loves lighter colors, so if you let your paint get too out of control, the eye is going to focus on that. Thanks, love. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it was really good to see you. Have fun. I hope your day goes well. I did not look at the needles, and although that explains why my arm was so hurty. Yeah, I do not like needles. Even after going through many surgeries, I still never watched them put the needle in. Ah, Dogfather. Yeah, well, like hobby stores kind of suffer from the same thing as art stores. So if you do it, go into the service side of it. Like, make sure that you're hosting tournaments. Make sure that you've got employees that that really love board games and can, do sample demo games. Host a board game night. Have a paint club. Do all those things. because it's the services aspect these days of a game store that will keep your customers coming back. Like the vast majority. So it's an investment of time and effort. This is coming up pretty well right here. So leave the red. Make sure you leave enough red. That plate's got a bit too much pinky going on, so I'm going to grab my carmine, my fire red, and do a little bit. The other thing I haven't done yet is I haven't done my classes for ReaperCon. I keep forgetting. Just so freaking busy. There. Alright, so that took that down. Now we've got all of these little plates coming out. And that's pretty good. Like, I think probably that pink highlight is going to be the only one. And then I'm just going to do a little white spot highlight. Because these areas are so small, they really don't need a lot. Yeah, exactly. XOS. That's very true. Yeah, and have snacks and drinks available. You can get the snacks and drinks for much cheaper than most of your gaming stock. I think owning a small retail store in this day and age is a challenge. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if it's your dream. It's just go into it understanding that the market has changed. It's not just about standing there and greeting customers as they come in anymore. It's about the experience and providing value beyond just a shelf full of stuff. Building a community and all the rest of it. Alrighty. So that armor's looking pretty good, actually. I like it. It's coming up nicely. All the details are standing out. It's still red. I'll probably do a white highlight, and then I'm going to hit it with a clear red glaze, I think. Ah. Yeah, that's hard, Max. That's hard. Although that store that was doing the discounting wasn't making much of a margin, probably. But still, yeah. It's hard. Although I think now consumer loyalty is a different game. You still get those people who will, come to your store to, and then just say, oh, well, I can get cheaper over here, right? But you also do have, I think in the gaming community, brand loyalty and store loyalty is a thing. And it's very important, the culture that you encourage in your store. I don't know, the 80s was still a pretty passive retail thing, so I could totally see what you're saying. Now, I don't know. With the only experience I have is having worked for Pegasus in Madison during the 90s and then seen Reaper develop its retail game store in the 2000s. So putting little white spot highlights just to increase a little bit of shinies. That also has the advantage of tamping down on the pink. So if you think it's risky, If you think the pink is a bit risky and you want to like kind of kill it a little bit, putting another highlight of white over the top of it is going to interrupt that pink a little bit. Yeah, that's really nice, Nomad. That keeps you going to a store, right? Yeah, have fun, Shadow Raven. Have fun with your tacos. I hope they're great. Ah, they also distributed. Yeah. Yeah, if they were also a distributor, then yeah, they're gonna take you out. Although distribution's been hit pretty darn hard now by the internet thing. Because local game stores are also in trouble because everybody's ordering stuff online. I don't know. It's a hard day. It's a hard time to be an in-person retailer. Yeah, that's nice to have to wear. It's nice when customer loyalty does that, you know, when you only buy online if your store doesn't carry it. But then stores kind of get in a catch-22 with that too, where they're, you know, they have such a small footprint because they have to make it pay and they can't afford a huge space unless they're doing, you know, a lot of tournaments, and even then maybe not. And so then, you know, they get in this thing where they can't carry everything, you know. There's just so much out there now. So then they have to really know their customer base. Like, it's a real challenge. Like, I can see how it would be very hard. Not impossible, I think, but very hard. Such hard work. And retail is always harder work than you get paid for anyway. Because, you know, you're always working holidays and nights and weekends. I used to work a lot of retail when I was doing college. Yeah, I run into that a lot. I hear that a lot from people that their local game store won't carry Reaper and paint. And I think that the problem is that all that other paint is sitting on the shelf, right? At least that's what stores have told me when I've asked them. When I've introduced myself and said, hey, you know, I work for Reaper. I made the Master Series paint line. Why don't you carry it? You know, then it's always like, well, we have all these paint lines and they don't really sell really good. And so we don't want to invest more in paint, which is fair. The best way to counter that, Crows, is to ask them if they'll do special orders from Reaper. Like, if they'll special order you some Master Series paint. I think Aaron Lovejoy did this when he was living in SoCal. His local store gave him that song and dance about, you know, oh, we have enough paint lines. And so he essentially got himself and all of his clientele and friends to order a bunch of Master Series, like just special order. I have the store constantly ordering like bottles of Master Series for them. And finally the store was like, well, if we're getting all this demand and we have to do all these special orders, you may as well bring a rack in. And so that helped. But if you are the lone hobbyist in your area, then that can be hard. Yeah, that's the most important thing, right, Mighty Lancer? That's why I was like, if you're really doing a good game store, I find that having employees that understand the product, at least one employee that like has a specialty in each area, right? Where you've got your board game guy who's like into it, you got your magic cards guy, he's totally into it, you know, maybe he's a judge, you know, who can run tournaments, and you've got your miniatures person who can talk about paint and painting and do demos and help people, you know, yeah, that's true too, dear Clearman. Distribution likes to promote or, like, you know, not promote. That's funny, Crows. People have thought about that. Although if you already have, like, a lot of stuff. So there we go. So we've got some micro highlights on here. It's making all the little plates come out nicely. I'm going to put a glaze over it. So let's grab a clear red. Where's my clear red? There it is. 9094. Of course, is clear red. All red pigment in a clear base. Super bright, but great for this sort of thing. Yeah. Call them and waste their time. Go for bug lips. This is what goblins do for entertainment. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, Emberdana. I can see how you'd be in a hard place there. So, okay, let's build this glaze. We've got red. We're going to start with 2 drops of water. That's not nearly thin enough, but we're going to start with it and see what we are, because red is a transparent color, so this might be okay for us. With most paints trying to build a glaze, you would want a lot more water. But with Clear Brights, because they are already a transparent paint and they're just really heavily color pigmented, you can go with just a 1-to-2 ratio and you probably have a pretty good glaze. This actually looks great. Yeah. And that's really too bad, but I could see it. I mean, paint takes up a lot of room. The biggest thing about paint is that often you have to buy a rack, and that's like a heavy investment, right? So a lot of little stores might not have the money to dump on, 3 bottles of everything, plus the rack, plus restock, things like that. It can be hard. All right, so let's look at this. I might actually want even more pigment. I'm going to put the layer of this over the top of this, though. So this is clear red. I'm going to put it over everything red. You want to brush it really thin. You do not want to let it pool. Remember, with a glaze, you never want to let it pool. So my answer is then to load up my brush like I'm... Uh-oh. That was not good. I hear a crash from the other room. Oh, I don't think anything broke. That just sounded like dishes in the sink. Which I usually wash after I, have my stream, but... Well, I don't hear any, like owie or sounds of pain. It's probably haunted. Nice. So just one layer of the clear red essentially integrates those white highlights, takes down any pinkness, and everything looks red. Very red. That is red, not pink. But we still have a little bit of those popped highlights on the edges. So there we are. We have gotten our red together. I think I do want to do just a little bit back here. I was talking about that before. Oh, it is actually 11:05, so I will hurry up and do this little back highlight. I just want a little bit. Doing a little bit of wet blending because I want this just a quick blend to blend into the back there. There we go. Alrighty. I'll probably make her eyes red too. We'll see. I'll have to. Well, maybe next time we'll do her big chibi eyes. Oh, I need to do her lipstick. What am I doing? I've totally forgotten the vampiric lipstick. I got her lower lip all outlined, and then so we're gonna go dark red. And lips are a great time to do that underpainting with white because you need little detail on there, little highlight, so you can get in there. Let's see. Get this white up here, and then we can get a highlight going on these lips. There. And usually I'll do a couple of little dots along the lip to kind of break up the highlight. I may tune it a bit if I decide that maybe it got too dotty and I want to get more of a strong highlight at the center. And if it goes too much up onto the upper lip, then I have to come in and fix that. That's okay because I have my liner colors, so that's easy. You notice I go back and forth a lot, just tweaking things until they are the way I want them. I don't expect to get it the first time, guys. when it happens, when you do nail it the first time, you're like super happy. But I never expect to nail it the first time. I just start it, and then I adjust it, and then I adjust it, and then I do it again, and then it turns out okay. So remember that. Even Anne does not expect to get it perfect the first time. All right, so that's highlight. Let's put our red over the top, and then we come back in with another highlight. So that makes that red pop. And then where I put my strongest middle highlight, I'll bring back in this white. Once again, a little bit. When their mouth is really sculpted close, you can easily get a little bit of that white or that lower lip color creeping onto the upper lip. Try to keep it from doing so. On a big bust, you might be able to put some color on that upper lip, but on a miniature, usually that's not really happening because the upper lip is so narrow and small. She's got her red lipstick now, yeah. Once we give her red eyes, it'll be even more so. I could give her green eyes, I suppose. But that would probably take down the green of her features, so I probably will make them crimson. But yeah, so we did a lot today, guys. We talked about doing like colder reds and how to keep them from going pink and how to deal with the tiny details. We talked about underpainting. We talked about glazing with clear red. Yeah, and you know what? I totally forgot to paint her shield red. I just realized this. So what we'll do is we'll throw that deep red on there as a base coat. I totally have been ignoring the shield. But we'll at least base coat it, and we can tackle it a different day. I think next time I'll work on her eyes. Maybe we'll do more, the hair needs to be done in the back. Maybe we'll do black cloth at the same time. So yeah. She's going to go fast because she's such a little model. And a lot of her is like just, you know, she's like black and red and gold. And so once you're done with that, you are done. Almost done with the model. Well, we still have to tackle the sword. We haven't even touched it. But she's getting there. She's getting there. Yeah, I probably won't do traditional chibi eyes then, because I'm like, I don't want to do the triangular highlights. I don't really go for it. I tend to just put like regular eyes on my chibis. Good, Amber. I'm glad. I'm glad. Hey, I just like to be of value to you guys. So there we go. There's our Chibi Monique. Thank you for attending, everyone. Who are we rating today, Reaper? On it. And I'll be on, I'll go check my Discord right after this, John. Yeah, Justin is getting shot up for the second time. Yeah, see what he said. Congrats to him. But yeah, no biggie. Yes, exactly. Glad you like it, Chibi. Glad you like it. Yeah, there we go. All right, Maharoon. Awesome. You guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be doing more on Wyvern tomorrow. Ooh, Wyvern. Now that we know our color scheme, we can start working with it, right? I'm going to probably get a lot done tomorrow. So you guys tune in. All right, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye.